Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. It's the official podcast of thevikingage.com. My name is Schad. I write for Fansided and Zone Coverage, and we do this right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We are also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. Now, as you can see, today's episode, it's me. It's that SCHAD. Sorry, guys. It's WrestleMania week, so you got to bear with me here. But I turned 39 on Monday, which is kind of depressing. Then I caught a stomach bug, and then I forgot to book a guest because, I don't know, I was horizontal on the couch. So that was a ton of fun. But with 1 week left until the NFL draft, I thought I'd come on here. I wanted to go over some of the Vikings' biggest needs and basically give a primer to what could happen. And also, too, if you're wondering where Adam is, he's on assignment right now. He's doing something pretty cool for the VikingAge.com. So keep an eye out for that this weekend. I want to get that out there and make sure you guys all know about that because I think you're going to like who he talked to and the things he had to say. I'll leave it at that. But main objective for today's show, I just want to come on here and throw on some names. You may have heard of them. You may have been following along with all the draft Twitter, the highs, the lows. I guess it would be Draft X now. But I just want to throw out some information. Maybe you haven't done anything on the draft and you just want to go, who could the Vikings be selecting? That is my main objective of the episode. Unfortunately, I have to start somewhere else because Aaron Rodgers went ahead and opened his mouth today. I was going to briefly touch on a report by Albert Breer, who for, I believe it's SI, he sat down with Kevin O'Connell and he talked about the quarterback situation. Like, hey, man, what's going on? And basically, it was a lot of stuff we already knew about the situation. McCarthy spent the offseason working on his footwork before camp. The Vikings thought about giving him more reps after the Vegas game, that the preseason game, of course, but he got hurt. He showed up the next morning and everybody's like, ooh, this isn't good. And he wound up being out for the season because he wears a Vikings jersey and anything that can go wrong with a knee will go wrong. And they believed to McCarthy to the point where they let Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones walk. This is kind of the prelude to Aaron Rodgers' appearance on the Pat McAfee show today, where he said, basically, Aaron Rodgers threw himself at the Vikings, wanting to be a mentor to J.J. McCarthy, and he could help the Vikings win a Super Bowl. Kind of like, the snake whispering in Kevin O'Connell's ear. The Vikings basically thought about it. They said, not right now, and that's where we stand. Then we had Aaron Rodgers go on Pat McAfee. And long story short, he proved me right. As far as all of his comments go, he proved everything that I've been saying with the possibility that Aaron Rodgers could be coming to Minnesota. He started talking about his visit with the Jets. Of course, that was the one where he flew out to New York and the Jets basically said, yeah, we're good here. We're going to release you. And yeah, that's going to happen. But of course, Aaron Rodgers had to get his side of the story out there. He doesn't like attention. But going on a nationally syndicated talk show and setting the record straight was just something he had to do. He heard it secondhand. He's just chilling on his beach house in Malibu and everything else. And he went on. He spent his own dime to fly out to New York and meet Aaron Glenn. By the way, Aaron Rodgers made $37.5 million last year. So I think he can afford a cross-country flight to New York. But I know flight costs are a little bit higher these days. So that's something there. But had a nice conversation going with the general manager of the Jets before Aaron Glenn, that mean, terrible man, walked in. And he sat down on his seat, went to the edge of the seat, and he goes, do you want to play football this year? And Aaron Rodgers said, yeah, I'm interested. And I think this is where Aaron Rodgers screwed up. Because sometimes when somebody says something like that, like once I asked somebody to be on the podcast, I won't name names, and I said, hey, it'd be great to have you on the show. Welcome to the team, blah, blah, blah. And his response was potentially. Like sometimes when he, like yes or no, like, hey, I'd love to, let's work something out, whatever. Nah, potentially. I'm interested. that's kind of the same thing. You go, no, you're not really interested, are you? It's not really potentially, are you? I think that's the vibe that Aaron Glenn got from Aaron Rodgers. And he basically said, yeah, we're going to go in a different direction. How do you want the message to be put out there? Because you're going to kind of spin this the way you want. And Aaron Rodgers, according to his verbatim report with Pat McAfee, who was sitting there like, yeah, bro, yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, Aaron Glenn doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, you're totally the greatest ever, dude. Basically, Aaron Rodgers said, I don't give a shit how you do it. And they said, oh, okay, well, I don't want to be up in front of the room telling the team one thing and having them turn around to you seeing what you think about it. And Aaron Rodgers went on this whole thing like, do you think I'm going to undermine the team? Then he said, you don't know me. And this whole thing ensued. It had the vibe of a toddler not getting his way because Aaron Rodgers wants to manipulate and control everything. I don't know him like he would definitely tell you, but that is basically what we have seen. We've seen this as Vikings fans for years, as we saw Aaron Rodgers pull a power play in Green Bay. The funniest thing about all of this is that Aaron Rodgers said, well, why couldn't you just tell me over this phone? Because Brian Gutekunst tried to call him multiple times in 2023 to see if he was coming back, and he didn't answer the phone. So there was that. And then there was 2 years before that where he tried to get Gutekunst fired. And like, I don't care. It's the Packers, right? But this is the type of dude you're dealing with. This is the type of dude that Vikings fans want to bring into Kevin O'Connell's coach. Kevin O'Connell's culture is going to coach him up, which is complete crap because he hasn't learned a damn thing. So there is that. Then there were other things too. As far as the Vikings thing, like him waiting on the Vikings, no. You don't understand. Me and Kevin O'Connell, we go way back. We talk all the time. We talk during the week, like two California boys, right? Yeah, like I'm totally not waiting on JJ McCarthy to fail or get hurt. No, that's totally not something I would do. Then he went to Pittsburgh just to see what it would be like to live there. I have great respect for Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and all those guys out there. And I went at Malibu and they showed the photo of him driving in the Malibu and they went, you're the best, Aaron. I love you. Yeah, Pat McAfee. Woo. And then, after he went and did all that stuff, he kind of laid out the situation that he'd play for $10 million. He's not holding anyone hostage, which if you talk to a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, they would disagree with you right now, or even the players on the Steelers for that matter. And he's just got some personal stuff to sort through. There's no timeline for the decision. I could just retire. I could do all of those things. Now, I'm not going to speculate on what the personal things are because you never know with people. Like, I don't want to come out here, say something, and then a couple weeks later find out something horribly was actually wrong. And, I look like a jackass in that vein. But this is Aaron Rodgers 101. It's controlling the narrative. It's making sure he has what he wants in his hand. And like I said, this was a problem long before he went to New York. But some people want to see him come to Minnesota thinking that he's the missing piece to a Super Bowl. By the way, in Green Bay, they thought that too. They won one, which a lot of Vikings fans would take. But a lot of bites at the apple and a lot of bad performances by Aaron Rodgers in between that Super Bowl and where we are now. He only has one ring. So do you want to – I mean, it's very similar to Favre. Like, people love bringing that up. Do you want to go on that roller coaster again? Again, a lot of Vikings fans would look back in 2009 and go, yeah, Brett Favre was fun. I don't care if they're California boys and they're super chill or not. I don't care if it's Mike Tomlin. I don't care if it's Bill Belichick. I don't care who it is. Aaron Rodgers is going to try and take control of that situation and make sure he's in control. Like that's basically it. And that proved my point why I don't want him here. I want JJ McCarthy to win the job. And I understand that he might go out and he might stumble a little bit. He might not be ready, but everything that we have heard from Aaron Jones calling him a baller, or I can't remember the exact thing that he said, but I mean, it's just positive review after positive review after positive review. I have full confidence that when JJ McCarthy takes the field, he's going to look like a starting quarterback, and he's going to do it to the standard that Kevin O'Connell wants. That's the question here. We just don't know what the hell Kevin O'Connell's standard is. Like, we didn't know it when they took McCarthy last year. We still don't know it. But if he goes out, and I would assume looks capable enough to help this team return to the playoffs, maybe make a deep run. Like, I don't think Kevin O'Connell, and this would be asinine if he is, I don't think he's going out there being like, you need to be 2021, 2020 MVP, piss and vinegar filled Aaron Rodgers and just waylay the entire league. I don't think that's fair to the kid. And maybe he agrees with that, which is why he's flirting with Aaron Rodgers. But you can't do it. You can't bring him in. He's going to ruin everything you have, and he's going to nuke the entire franchise. So, and the other thing I do want to point out here too is that I have a lot more respect for Aaron Glenn for, if this story is true. Like, this might be stretching the truth a little bit, but if he went up to him and said, do you want to play football or not? And he didn't like his answer, like, that's Dan Campbell's. That's the culture they have established in Detroit. And whether you like them as Vikings fans or not, they are a model franchise in the NFL right now. It is insane to say that about the Detroit Lions, but they are the franchise everybody's looking up and trying to get the secret sauce. That's why Ben Johnson is in Chicago. That's why Aaron Glenn is in Detroit. And between the two, I think Aaron Glenn has a better chance to succeed. Now, Aaron Glenn also in a very dysfunctional environment who, works for a boss who determines personnel decisions by Madden ratings. Aaron Rodgers is a 77 at the end of the year, by the way. I looked that up. But I mean, I like the fact that he is establishing a culture and basically doing what Dan Campbell did in Detroit, which, whether you like it or I mean, you also have to think about it this way. If we go by the theory that Dan Campbell's just going to forget how to coach because he lost Johnson and Glenn, well, that says something about the assistants that are leaving, and maybe they will succeed at their new spots. So that is the Aaron Rodgers rant. I come on here and I'm just like, maybe I'll give it, 30 minutes total. Just get in, get out, get some names. Nah, I got to go on my rants and my tangents and everything else. So, thank you for joining. This is the Viking Age podcast, by the way. Chris Schad here, my co-host Adam Patrick on assignment. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. We're talking about the NFL draft targets. If you got an opinion, if you got a player that you like or whatever, drop a comment, leave one, like, comment, subscribe, all the cool YouTube things. Helps us out, grows our audience, which is now up to 1,200 followers, which is very cool. So thank you for checking out the show. Thank you for spreading the word. And hopefully we can continue to crank out some good content for you guys. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL draft. I'm having a little bit of issues getting hyped up for the draft. And I don't know if it's because the Vikings have 4 picks. I don't know if it's because this isn't really a TV draft, as they call it. You got Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter at the top, but like outside of that, it's Cam Ward, it's Shedeur Sanders, just not a lot of guys that you're hoping falls to the Vikings and you're just like, hell yeah. Now, does that mean there is absolutely nobody in this draft? No. There are some guys the Vikings could use. And basically, this is what you need to know going into the draft. As I get a quick swig of water here. It is funny. You feel fine, then you start the podcast and your throat gets, maybe it's me screaming about Aaron Rodgers, but your throat gets sore, your nose starts sniffling. Gonna have to take that allergy pill here soon. But the Vikings coming in the draft with 4 picks. They have the 24th overall pick in round 1. They have the 97th overall pick in round 3. They have the 139th overall pick round 5. It's Cleveland's original pick. So I think it's a Zadarius Smith trade from, it would have been 2 off seasons ago. Yeah, after the 2022 season. So that's where that pick came from. And then the 187th overall pick, the Vikings traded down from their original 5th round pick with San Francisco in the Jordan Mason trade. So, that's kind of a fair trade-off when you think about it, because the Vikings got a starting running back out of that deal. The Vikings also don't have a lot of picks because they traded up for J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. see how that pans out. Maybe 1 year from now, we're just like, yeah, we didn't really need those picks. But yeah, it does kind of sting and take some of the excitement out of the draft as you're getting ready for it as a Vikings fan. So what do the Vikings need? That's what you want to ask right now. I will tell you right now, I think my number one need for the Vikings coming into the 2025 NFL draft is draft capital. Not sexy. It's not, I don't know. It's pretty boring. I'll admit that. But this team doesn't have a lot of picks, and they need some young talent. Like, they need to hit on some dart throws here because the 2022 draft was a waste. 2023 draft, you got Jordan Addison. I think there was somebody else in that draft too. I'm totally blanking on them. So I apologize if I don't have the name off the top of my head. But then 2024 class, the jury's still out because the two most impactful players didn't play a lot last season, either due to injury in McCarthy's case or in Dallas Turner's case. It was just a developmental year, which is fine. A lot of people are still high on Dallas Turner. I'm very interested to see how Dallas Turner looks this year because I think he has the high-end talent. It's just a lot to absorb in Brian Flores' defense, and that's something you should kind of think about when you look at potential draft picks for the Vikings. So there is that. This is where I say to a point, though, because you do want the Vikings to get more picks. You want to trade down. I think that's the most likely scenario. But look back to the 2022 draft. The Vikings are sitting in the 12th overall pick, and they trade down 20 spots with the Lions. Excuse me. They left Jamison Williams on the board, who could be traded now by the Lions. I've seen that floating out there. I don't think they do. It's kind of like the Jordan Addison thing, where it's just like, yeah, they could trade him, but I don't think they will. Jordan Davis, a big defensive tackle for the Eagles. We're talking about how we want like physical freaks in the trenches. Jordan Davis, I think he's more of a run stuffer than a pass stuffer without looking up his PFF grades, but that would have fit the bill looking back on it. Although you didn't have Brian Flores back then, you had Ed Donatel, whose defense was basically stay back and watch everybody run by you. That was basically Ed Donatel's defense. And then you also had Kyle Hamilton, who that was the pick. That was what they should have done. And, our friend of the show, Thor Nystrom, was on Purple Daily today talking about it. He thinks that it was a situation where Kwesi was just locked into trading before the draft, where he said, hey, we need picks, we need players, we need all this stuff. I'm going to trade down from, the Sonny Weaver Jr. thing. But instead of Vontae Mack, it was trade down no matter what. They got a bad deal from the Lions. They dropped down 32 picks. And then you had a whole bunch of swings and misses. You had Lewis Cine in the first round. You traded up for Andrew Booth Jr. in the second round. You got Ed Ingram, and then you got Brian Asamoah. Asamoah is the only player left on the team, and he's playing in a special teams role right now. So that tells you everything you need to know about that trade right there. So I mean, I think the Vikings should try to trade down. I think that should be a priority. But if you have a premier player that falls, you need to take them. You need to take them and figure out the draft capital later. It would suck, but I mean, the Los Angeles Rams had like no picks for a couple years, and they still found a way to build a pretty damn good defense that whooped the shit out of the Vikings in the NFC wildcard game, especially that front seven. So draft picks do matter, but to a point. And again, if JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner turn out, we're not going to be sitting here and be like, man, I know Turner looks good, but really, what could we have gotten in the fourth round? Maybe that running back I watched on YouTube once, with the Just Bombs Productions or whatever. Rap never gave me a scholarship. And, Devin Neal, however many height and weight. A lot of people like Devin Neal, so I'm not crapping on him. But that's just kind of it. But I mean, think Jordan Addison in 2023, where Kevin O'Connell's like, dude, just take him. Kwesi, say that's a number one receiver. Take him. And then Dallas Turner in 2024. So if it happens, they'll stockpile some picks. And here's another thing. It might entice the Vikings to trade down, but it also might hinder teams from trading up, because he said on Purple Insider, Matthew Collar, of course, friend of the show, Trevor said, his 20 from 60 on his big board are basically one big tier of 40 players. Like, there's not really a difference between them. So maybe a team, when the Vikings are on the clock, they may like a guy at 24, but they feel like they can get somebody comparable if they just stay at their pick. So it's one of the storylines that will play out for the Vikings, and we won't know until the draft actually begins, which is why I hate mock drafts. I'm old, I'm crusty, I know, but it is what it is at this point. So if the Vikings stick and pick, or even trade down just a little bit, because I think the goal should be like, don't trade from 24 to 37 because you're going to miss a lot of the guys. Try and trade in that back half of the first round. Maybe you trade for that, the first couple of picks in the second round. Like, don't get too cute with it and just take the first offer that comes along. The one area that I would like to see the Vikings draft, and I know I said offensive line last week, and we will talk about that. Defensive tackle is the strength of this draft. You can make an argument that the Vikings could probably wait a couple of rounds to take a defensive tackle. Maybe they want to do that at the 97th overall pick. But defensive tackle is a position where if you pay up with a premium selection, there's higher odds that they will be a premium asset to you. So, I mean, it's just kind of one of those cost investment things. You get what you pay for. Maybe that's the phrase that I'm looking at. But, I mean, the Vikings could use some youth, even though they made some key signings along the defensive line in free agency. Jonathan Allen's a former Pro Bowler, but he's also 30 years old. It's Javon Hargrave, I believe. Javon Hargrave is 32 years old, and he's coming off of a major injury, as is Allen. Can you get a guy you can rotate and learn behind them? Because this was something the Vikings used to do for a long time with their edge rushers. Brian Robinson, he started as a reserve, wound up being a starter, one of the greatest. Maybe greatest is a bit of a stretch, but I mean, he's one of the more prominent edge rushers in Vikings history. One moment, please. These solo shows are tough on the pipes, but we'll get through it. Everson Griffin, another player, started as a reserve, went in the starting role. Daniil Hunter was a situational pass rusher when he came to the league. The Vikings wound up using him pretty well, and he wound up having a pretty good career in his own right in Minnesota. I think if you get a guy that you like, maybe a Derek Harmon, and by the way, like defensive line, teams love rotating them now. It's not just like you get a guy and you expect him to play, I don't know, like 1,500 snaps. Like, guys come in, they rotate, they keep them fresh. Covering South Dakota State down the road here when I was at the paper, they always vouched all the time. Like, we want to be deep. We want to have 2 or 3 waves of guys because guys get hurt. Guys get tired during games. We're trying to keep fresh guys so it wears out the opposing offensive line. And I think that's the type of system the Vikings need to adopt. Now, they don't really have that depth right now, but if they do take a guy like Oregon State's Derek Harmon, I could not find his age earlier for the life of me, which is weird. I thought it was like a bench warmers thing where the guy comes in with a birth certificate and says, I am 12. But he'll turn 22 in August, 10 and a half sacks at Oregon last year. He's also very versatile, which is a key word in Brian Flores' defense, play 1-5 tech. By the way, before I get into this, a lot of my research, I went off the beast over at The Athletic, Dane Brugler. Awesome. It's, let's see, I have it written down, 523 pages of information. I have not read the entire thing, but like, you will learn stuff like you never wanted to know about these prospects when you read it. So I always look at that when I see who the final guys are, maybe who's on the board as we're approaching. It's a great tool. So if you have The Athletic, I highly recommend going and checking that out. Michigan's Mason Graham is the top defensive tackle in the draft. I think he's long gone by the time the Vikings pick at 24, but he's well-rounded, isn't as lengthy as you would hope, and just needs some development in his game to be more consistent. His teammate, Kenneth Grant, is a more athletic version of Mason Graham, but he also weighs 333 pounds. So you got to do the whole conditioning concerns with him. Not ideal, but he is definitely a player you would call a game wrecker. Excuse me. Um, then you have Mississippi's Walter Nolan, who Trevor Sikkema loves this guy. Thor Nystrom loves this guy. Huge upside. If you watch his tape, he's throwing dudes left and right into the ball carrier. That is the kind of dominant force the Vikings should be looking for in a defensive tackle. So it's a strong defensive tackle class. I think that's where the Vikings are going to need to go at some point. Like I said, the earlier you do it, the better, in my opinion. The other side of the trenches also needs some work, in my opinion. The interior offensive line. And I know they signed Will Fries, that they signed Ryan Kelly. I talked about it last week. You still got some concerns with Blake Brandel. And you got to remember, Kevin O'Connell looked like he was going to murder someone at the podium talking about his interior offensive line. So the other thing is, too, I don't want to panic trade if somebody gets hurt. Like if somebody tears something, we're like, oh my God, our backup isn't capable of playing. A, why is he on the damn roster? And B, fourth round pick for Cam Robinson. I don't know. I would like a fourth round pick right about now because the Vikings didn't do. Cam Robinson got worked so bad in the playoffs that I don't know. Fourth round pick just doesn't seem worth it to me anymore. But hindsight is 2020. And then of course, insurance for Ryan Kelly and Blake Brandel. I like Blake Brandel as a backup more than I do a starter because he can fill in any role. If you need him for a couple games, I think he's fine. I just don't like the idea of him starting 16 games. So if the Vikings are going to go get an interior offensive lineman, I would be okay with that. There are a lot of guys in the top half that you could go with. Tyler Booker is a prominent name. He was a teammate of JJ McCarthy at IMG Academy in Florida, which is, if you don't know, that's basically a prep school. So kids can get ready to play sports in college. Also, Tyler Booker, more of a power guy. And I would say, there's been some speculation, like maybe, and I think it's gone on a couple of years now, where people have just sat in here and said, hey, could Kevin O'Connell like switch things up and go from a zone scheme to a power scheme? Sean McVay did that in Los Angeles, and it's worked pretty well for them with Kyron Williams. But Jordan Mason is a zone running back, so I don't think they would be like, all right, we got our zone running back. We're running power, buddy. Good luck. I don't think that would happen. So I like Tyler Booker. I just don't think he fits what the Vikings want to do, but Vikings know more than I do in a lot of cases. Kelvin Banks Jr. is another guy that I have my eye on. He's a tackle from Texas, but a lot of people think he can slide into guard in the pros. Also an All-American, I believe, helped Texas to the college football playoff each of the last 2 seasons. He's 12th on Thor Nystrom's big board right now, which ranks 500 players. It's over at Fantasy Life. Go check it out. I'm trying to remember all of these things, because I know a lot of people who do a lot of great work during draft season, and I love having them on. I just didn't get the time to set it up. So I'm trying to remember all this stuff and telling you to go check it out. Hopefully I remember everybody. If I forget you, I apologize. Let me know. I'll tweet it out sometime this week. Tyler Fornes, A to Z Sports, also a guy. Follow him. He does some good stuff on the draft as well. And then here's a guy that I like. He's going to be in the second round. So this is probably like a trade down target. Tate Ratledge from Georgia, in the beast. He's a self-described dirtbag, which is exactly the kind of human I want on the Vikings offensive line. I don't want Gitwit Webwee, who, he's smart. He knows the offense and everything else, but he's going to get stuffed into a locker by Kenny Clark. I want somebody who's a little dirty in the trenches and plays with a vengeance. He has some health concerns. You got to worry about those, but that's another guard I would keep my eye on. And then another guy, before we get to the underdog read, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. A lot of guys like him. I was not able to go to either SDSU, NDSU game this year. First one was by choice because I went to the Vikings-Lions game. And that turned out to be a great idea because I got laid off before the second one. So that's great. Hey, everything happens for a reason, right? I'm doing good. I'm hosting the TVA pod. I'm working for Fansided. I love my job. Hey, it all worked out. But now that Gray Zabel is a prospect, I'm kind of like, damn, I wish I could have like seen him in action. But he's listed as a center on Brugler's Beast Guide. That might be a good thing long term because I don't know how long Ryan Kelly's going to continue to play. Is he 1 year guy? He also has no guaranteed money in the second year of his deal. So if he's not good, the Vikings can just say, "Hey, man, thanks. It didn't work out. We can just move on." And you could start him at guard this year because he's also versatile. He's played all 5 positions across the offensive line, and he's a solid zone scheme player. So, I mean, if they want to go zone and go all in on that, if they stick at 24 and they just take Gray Zabel, I will not be upset with that at all. So, those are my needs. We're going to get to under the radar targets in just a minute. But I want to tell you about underdog fantasy because do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Of course you do. And you can do it at underdog. To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on their stats, such as points, assists, rebounds, and more. They got all of your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. I've been playing underdog for years, and this is one of the most exciting times of the year for me. You got the NBA playoffs, you got the NHL playoffs. I love doing pitcher stuff on MLB. So I go higher or lower on things like pitching outs, strikeouts. If I got nothing going on at night, I just pull out my phone. I download the Underdog app and I just make a couple of entries with as little as $1. So there's really no excuse. You go ahead, you download the Underdog app, sign up now with the promo code The Age to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with the promo code The Age and claim your special offer today to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon your first deposit. You must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama or Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. If you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. And in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 46739. Of course, YouTube audience, put the little graphic up there late. You see it right there. Promo code The Age, all one word, get your bonus. So there you have it. Once again, my apologies. Got to take a sip of water before we get going here. Once again, thank you for hanging out with me on this Thursday night. It's great to feel alive on a Thursday night in Brookings or wherever you are. But I want to talk about some under the radar targets before we wrap up the Vikings draft conversation, because you never know what's going to happen. Like that. That's why the draft is fun. It's why I kind of like roll my eyes at mock drafts this kind of year. Although next week might be the most important mock drafts we look at. You know, there's a lot of things going on. One area where the Vikings could make a wow, that's interesting pick. It's cornerback Jahdae Barron. He's 5'10", 194 pounds, a 4.39 second time in the 40. So good speed, a little bit older at age 23, but he profiles as a zone cornerback, which is something that Brian Flores has played a lot of since he came to Minnesota, using that zone scheme with the blitz in the front 7. Dane Brugler mocked him to the Vikings on Wednesday, so he's not really under the radar anymore. But when you look at the Vikings cornerback room, there's still some questions. Everyone seems to think Asante Samuel Jr. is coming. It was updated on his wiki page. Apparently somebody saw him in a nightclub with a Vikings hat. I don't know what's happening there. Maybe they have an under the table deal so they don't give up comp picks. But when you look at the rest of the room, Kai Blackman's coming off an ACL injury. Sounds like he's good to go, but still kind of sketchy there when you miss a year. Isaiah Rodgers is currently a starter. I don't think the Vikings want that, but I could be wrong. Then, of course, you have Byron Murphy Jr. on the big contract, but behind them, it's Jeff Okudah, it's Dwight McGlothern. Do you want to take a young corner that you can develop? Maybe he's another guy that you develop behind. If he's good, he gets into the starting lineup. Like sometimes, we slam Mike Zimmer all the time for taking corners, but they do get banged up. They get hurt. They're inconsistent, especially right now with this team. Like back then, Mike Zimmer had Xavier Rhodes too. So like you could kind of scoff at like, okay, buddy, whatever you think. But even Xavier Rhodes got hurt. The Vikings cornerback room, a little more fickle. So maybe adding one more guy wouldn't be the worst idea. And again, maybe they have that deal with Samuel in place. Safety is another position that could be something the Vikings target. I've seen Nick, I apologize, I'm going to butcher this name, Amanwari from South Carolina is a guy that's in there, but I think Malachi Starks would be a better fit. He's been described as very versatile, which again, ding, 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 that's a Brian Flores word. How many years does Harrison Smith have in him? Starks can also kind of play wherever you need him as kind of a jack of all trades. And if you have him with Metellus playing two similar roles, I mean, Brian Flores could probably cook up a package like that. So, I mean, that could be pretty fun. And then, too, maybe he starts next year if Harrison Smith retires. We just don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. So, Malachi Starks from Georgia, another guy I like. Another one, and this is actually going to be the last one. I only have 3 under the radar guys because I don't know. There's probably somebody screaming at their screen right now, just like, no, this guy. Check out everybody that I've mentioned because they do great job. They do great work. If I had them on here, they probably tell me exactly who I should be thinking of. One more second, please. All right. Wide receiver. This is another area that I'm kind of looking at. And the guy that makes sense in my mind that I think will be on the board is Emeka Egbuka from Iowa, or Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. Jordan Addison could be suspended for a few games to open next season. You could use an upgrade over Jalen Naylor, who will be a free agent after this season. So that is something you should keep an eye on. And, Brugler's scouting report noted that Egbuka would thrive in a slot role where he can expand a play calling menu with his diverse skill set. Kevin O'Connell, come on down. That is the guy that I think O'Connell will be looking at. Do they have the guts to take him at 24? I don't think so. I would be shocked if they took a receiver, but also very excited because, we love 3 deep here in Minnesota, like Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Emeka Egbuka. Sounds like a lot of fun to me. And then you have TJ Hawkinson, you have Aaron Jones out of the backfield, you have Jordan Mason. I don't know. Egbuka ran a 4.48 at his pro day, a little bit slow, but I mean, it's still 4.4. You can work with it. And I think it's the most unlikely position the Vikings address, but they can do it. I'm going to throw one more out there because I was thinking about it today. Running back. I know Jordan Mason has arrived, but it's also a very cheap contract. So if things don't work out, you can always get out of it. And Aaron Jones is on the wrong side of 30 though. And I've seen people kind of bang the drum for Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. And I would be on board with that. I think he's explosive. I think people pay a little bit too much attention to his stats, which were a little bit watered down because Quinshon Judkins showed up at Ohio State last year. Physically, he's very good. Player Profiler had his comp as Reggie Bush. So when you think about, and I mean, I think all NFL teams, like we were talking about Detroit being a model franchise. I think a lot of NFL teams are going to look at Detroit's rushing attack and go, how can we do that? Because they have 2 backs that can run the hell out of the ball. Like they can run for 2,000 yards in their sleep next year. Do you get a thumper? Like if we're looking at the current Vikings, I could see Jordan Mason being that David Montgomery hammer that gets the tough yards, maybe the goal line looks, gets the extra yards after contact. Who is going to be their version of Jahmyr Gibbs? And now trying to find Jahmyr Gibbs, that's a little easier said than done. But, a player like Henderson who has explosive ability, he could fill that role. Aaron Jones, I think for a rookie year, that could fill that role as well. If you take a back later, I'm saying Aaron Jones, obviously not a rookie, but I think it's just something to monitor because Kevin O'Connell, we already know he's not messing around with this offensive line anymore. And one of the weaknesses of the offensive line was their ability to run block, especially when it came to inside the 5. They have that hammer. Do they take one step forward and look at, what happens post Aaron Jones? What happens when he leaves? Like, is that a situation where you want to go ahead and get Travion Henderson, Marion Hampton, Ashton Jeanty's not falling down to 24, but those are guys you should kind of keep your eyes on. So those are my under the radar targets. A lot of them, again, you probably heard on, but I mean, this is meant to be a layman's guide to the NFL draft. And I don't know if this helps you, if this, over the weekend, if you're scrolling, it's Easter weekend, maybe you're bored with your family, you go, man, I'm going to look up that Travion Henderson guy and just see. Look up his game tape freshman year against Minnesota. That's kind of why I like him a lot. So, yeah, I mean, 1 week until the draft. Adam's going to be on next Wednesday. We're going to talk one last time about the draft, maybe recap some of the new things, maybe recap some of the stuff Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah said today, although his press conferences aren't real interesting. Like, it makes you miss Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman a little bit because they would give you a lot. Kwesi got spooked by that interview by Jory Epstein early in his career and just didn't really do anything after that. So there is that. But before I let you go, I know some of you on YouTube are like, oh, he's got a purple shirt. He must be a Viking shirt on. Nope. This is good old Razor Ramon. WrestleMania 10, the ladder match. I dig this shirt, man. I just got it. So I'm excited. I'm ready to flash it. And I'm ready to make a couple of WrestleMania predictions because it is this Saturday and Sunday in Las Vegas, Nevada. Should have been in Minneapolis, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the big matches. I'll run down this very quickly before we go here. I think Seth Rollins wins the main event on night 1. Does Heyman leave with him? And then does Rollins get the big push? I feel like Rollins is going to win because it's centered a little too much around Roman Reigns and CM Punk. And Rollins is just kind of hanging on the side. And I feel like he hasn't had, I know he was world heavyweight champion for a while, but he hasn't had that big win in a while. So I think Seth Rollins is going to pick up the win at WrestleMania. That's my prediction there. And 2, if Rollins does go with Heyman, that adds another layer to Rollins versus Punk down the road. Maybe you have a layer with Rollins against Reigns. Like, there are a lot of possibilities you can go with there. So, I mean, sounds like fun. I'm interested to see it. I'm looking forward to it. World heavyweight title. I think Jey Uso defeats Gunther for the world title. You can't have him go 0-4. I know some people online don't like him. I enjoy Jey Uso on my TV. I don't know. I like my wrestling stupid, I guess. But I don't know. I don't think you can waste that Rumble win. And also, neither are main eventing on the show, which probably needs to be figured out next year. But it sounds like Jey and Gunther are going to lead off WrestleMania, which is going to be fun. And then the third one, I've gone back and forth. I'll probably go another direction between now and Sunday, but I think Cody beats Cena because I think when Cena wins that 17th title, it should be a moment that's celebrated and not like people booing and all that stuff. Maybe he loses to Cody, sulks for a bit, and comes back to win the title, and it's like this big redemption story. But also of note, Backlash is in St. Louis, which is the hometown of the gentleman I have to my right here, Randy Orton. So maybe Cena wins the title, and then you have heel Cena against babyface Randy Orton in St. Louis for the WWE Championship. That would be pretty fun. Tiffy and Charlotte, I don't know. I want to see Tiffy win. She's a Minnesota. She's a Vikings fan. We got to stick together, right? So maybe it is Tiffy time. I don't know. But that's the match that kind of interested to see. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, the triple threat. Well, this gets into my off-the-wall predictions, too, for WrestleMania, because you have you have Bianca Belair against Io Sky and Rhea Ripley for the Women's World title. My money is on Jade Cargill siding with Naomi. And I know they're fighting on Saturday, but I feel like Jade Cargill is a better heel than a face. Something's not right there, in my opinion. Like, this is the fun part about wrestling. You can make your own opinions, right? Just something doesn't seem right in the soap opera universe. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bianca's going to win the title on Sunday in the triple threat. Jade comes out to kind of run some clearance and just turns on her. And then you have Jade against Bianca, massive rivalry, and something that a lot of fans have kind of clamored for since Jade came to WWE. So we'll see if that happens. And then there's also the possibility, hey, what if Naomi is siding with Bianca and they make Jade the superhero face? That's something that could happen too. The other thing that I think will happen, Dominic Mysterio, my guy, Dirty Dom, is going to win the Intercontinental title. It's Braun Breaker against Penta, against Finn Balor, against Dominic Mysterio on Sunday night. Everybody in this match has scored a pin in the build except for Dom, which makes me think he's due. And like, I could see Dom pulling out a win out of his ass. Like, oh, I didn't mean to knock out Finn, or something weird like that, where Dom gets the win. And then maybe Finn turns on him the night at the Raw after Mania, or Dominic turns on Finn and he becomes a huge face. I feel like Finn would be, I don't know who would be the face out of that turn, honestly. Like, people hate Dom, but I think people also love Dom, where they're just like, they want to see him succeed. And the guy's earned it. Like, when he first came in, he was as plain as could be. He was like a creative wrestler. Now he's got a character. You see the light bulb going off. And if you look back at his early matches when he first came to WWE, he can go. He's got a bigger moveset than he lets on. So I know there are some people who hate that term, but he's a very talented wrestler. So I think it would be interesting to see him get a run with the title, because then Braun Breaker can go on to bigger things, such as the World Heavyweight title. Maybe he's the guy that defeats Jey Uso and goes on his long run. And then Penta can go tag with Rey Fenix, who debuted on SmackDown. I don't know if they want that yet, but that's just something there. So there's 13 matches on the card. I'd love to go down all of them with you, but I'm just going to keep my big ones to myself. So if you're a wrestling fan, enjoy the show. If you're not a wrestling fan, you probably got a lot on your plate anyway, with the Timberwolves playing game 1 on Saturday and the Minnesota Wild coming off a top 10 moment in franchise history, going into the playoffs and taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. Good luck. Let's look at what's going on in the Viking age. I was going to look at the current news on the site, but I don't have it up, but I will let you know. And again, Adam on assignment tonight. He's got something good cooking for everybody. So it could drop on Sunday, could drop on Monday. Keep your eyes peeled for it. A prominent figure talking about JJ McCarthy. That's all I'll let on. But it's going to be pretty cool, and I think you guys are going to like it. And then just look over Fansided, Regional Betting Network. That is who I write for in my full time. I write about the Lions, Packers, and Bears over there, so you can catch up on all of them ahead of the draft. We also got some baseball and basketball stuff. If you just want to, read about something different, I write about that too. And then, of course, my Viking stuff is over at Zone Coverage. Trying to think what I wrote about on. I think I wrote about how it just doesn't feel like the draft on Monday. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll just rant about Aaron Rodgers tomorrow when I get on there. But that is pretty much it for the Viking Age today. I am Chris Schad. Follow me at The Real Chris Schad. I'm on X. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads. I got a Blue Sky, although I never post on Blue Sky. I should probably get to that. We do this every week right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel, and we're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode, and we can spread the word to the masses. For me, I forgot to take that part out of the outline. I am Chris Schad. This has been the Viking Age Podcast.